They're not calling, but somehow they never really left. Their voice, still echoing in your head. Their silence, still louder than any noise you've heard all week. Their absence, still showing up in your dreams, in your moods, in the way you pause before laughing. And here's the truth no one likes to admit. You're not missing them. You're missing the version of yourself that existed when they were around. What you had, or what you thought you had, isn't the thing that's hurting you now. What's hurting is memory. Memory pretending to be love. Nostalgia acting like a soulmate. The Stoics warned us about this, not about heartbreak specifically, but about false attachments, about clinging to illusions long after reality has moved on, because when you stay emotionally tied to someone who has already detached from you, you become a prisoner of your own mind. You must know what you are before you attach yourself to anything else. Cleanthes. So, what is this video? It's not advice, it's not self-help, it's not another lecture telling you to just move on. This is a dissection of attachment, of emotion, of control, through the lens of ancient Stoic wisdom and the brutal clarity it brings, because there are 7 rules, 7 Stoic truths that can help you emotionally detach, not with bitterness, not with ego, but with calm, clean clarity. You will not leave this video the same. By the end of this, you'll stop waiting. You'll stop chasing closure in people who can't even give it to themselves. You'll remember what you were before you gave yourself away. You'll understand that detachment isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear. So take a deep breath, sit with the silence, and let's begin. Rule 1. Cut the thread, not the heart. You love them. That part isn't up for debate, but the problem is you're still holding on, not to them, not really, but to the thread that connects you to what used to be. And that thread, it's fraying, it's tight, it's cutting into your skin, and still you won't let go, because you think letting go means admitting it never mattered, that if you stop hoping, the entire connection disappears, that you become cold, heartless, numb. But that's not Stoicism, and that's not detachment. Letting go doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you stop clinging. It means you stop making your healing dependent on someone else's apology, or attention, or regret. You've done this, haven't you? Scrolled to the last thing they said, as if reading it one more time will unlock the reason they left. You tell yourself you're just curious, but you're not. You're bargaining with reality. Maybe they'll come back. Maybe I just need to wait. Maybe I didn't matter to them, but maybe I still could. The Stoics had no patience for maybe, because maybe is how you rot inside. Cleanthes said, hold lightly, even what is precious. He wasn't telling you not to love. He was telling you to stop worshipping what you cannot keep. You think this pain is noble, that suffering in silence means you were real. But the Stoics believed the opposite. Real strength is found in how quickly you reclaim your inner peace. Not in how long you bleed. The kite is beautiful. It represents all the good moments, the laughter, the connection, the possibilities. But it's tied to a house that's on fire now. And you're standing in the doorway, watching it burn, whispering, I'll let go soon. Just not yet. Let go. Not because it didn't matter, but because you do. Because survival is more important than symbolism. Because healing is not a betrayal. It's proof that your love was real, and that it deserves to end with dignity. So, what do? Here's the first act of Stoic detachment. Write the letter. Say everything you want to say. The good, the bad, the heartbreak, the anger, the things you never had the courage to admit. And then, burn it. Not out of rage, not to prove a point, but to remind yourself, this story belongs to you now, not them. No text. No, I just wanted to say, no final message. Silence is sacred. Because that thread you've been holding, it's not keeping them connected to you. It's keeping you tied to a version of yourself that no longer exists. Cutting the thread doesn't mean you don't care. It means you're finally ready to live without the leash, without the tension, without the haunting what-ifs that never gave you peace. You don't need closure from someone who couldn't give you clarity when it mattered. You don't need to be chosen to prove you're worthy. And you don't need to feel empty just because they left. You are still full of memory, of lessons, of strength. But the chapter is over. Close the book. And don't slam it shut in bitterness. Let the final page turn with grace. You let go, and for the first time, you can finally feel your own hands again. Rule 1. Cut the thread, not the heart. Feel it, honor it, but do not let it hold you hostage. Rule 2. The self is a fortress, not a mirror. You built yourself in front of them. Every word you said, you watched for their reaction. Every opinion you shared, you softened it first. And every part of yourself that didn't get applause, you buried it. Slowly, without realizing it, you started borrowing your identity from their eyes, from their silence, from the way they smiled at you when you got it right. And now that they're gone, you don't know who you are anymore. Not because they took anything, but because you gave everything. This is rule 2. The self is a fortress, not a mirror. Because mirrors lie. They show you what's reflected back at you, not what's real, not what's yours. Be honest. How much of you was just strategy? How many parts of your life, your clothes, your tone, your ambitions, were designed to be palatable to them, to not scare them off, to keep the peace, to make them stay? Epictetus warned us about this kind of surrender. He said, "If you pin your identity on anything outside of your control, prepare to lose it." Love did not destroy you. Imitation did. You became what you thought they wanted. And now that they're gone, you feel like there's nothing left. That moment you stop seeing yourself through their eyes. That's the first step back to your center, because who are you when no one's watching? The Stoics weren't against love, they were against slavery of the soul, against performing, against forgetting the source of your worth. So now, it's time to rebuild. Take inventory. Write it all down. Every belief you held just to match theirs. Every time you laughed at something you didn't find funny. Every time you held back the truth, softened your fire, nodded when you disagreed. Every time you shrunk. And next to each one, ask, is this me or was this survival? Because not everything you built with them was false. But some of it was scaffolding, temporary, hollow, meant to hold the illusion, not the truth. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about excavating the person you abandoned, the one who existed before the performance. That self, the one who didn't flinch when alone, that self is still here, beneath the noise, beneath the craving for validation, beneath the reflex to people please. Marcus Aurelius once wrote in his journal, "Withdraw into yourself, for nowhere can a person find a more peaceful retreat than in their own soul." That is the Stoic fortress, not made of walls, but of values, of clarity, of stillness. When you are a mirror, you're vulnerable to every gaze, but when you are a fortress, you don't reflect, you radiate. This is where the self begins again. In solitude, not reaction. Not in the echo of another's approval, but in the calm of being unobserved and still standing strong. You are not the person they wanted. You are not the role you rehearsed. You are what remains when you stop pretending. That is enough. This isn't loneliness. This is the sound of rebuilding, brick by brick, principle by principle, because this time you won't be a mirror. You'll be the one holding the torch. The self is a fortress, not a mirror. Protect it. Rule 3. Attention is worship. Reclaim yours. You say you're over them, but your attention tells a different story. You say they're not in your life anymore, but they still live in your tabs, in the corners of your screen, in the seconds you steal at work to check their feed, in the imagined conversations you rehearse before sleep. You're not in love, you're in orbit, circling a dead star. Forgetting it no longer gives off light. Marcus Aurelius said, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes the color of your thoughts." Let me put it another way. Attention is worship. What you look at, you bow to. What you return to, you feed. What you can't stop thinking about is shaping you, slowly, invisibly, completely. We like to think we're rational, that we're just checking because we're curious. But there is no neutral attention. Every scroll through their page is a silent prayer at the wrong altar. You are feeding the flame, not the flame of love, but of longing, of craving, of the ego's hunger for unfinished stories. You're not trying to move on, you're trying to rewrite what happened by watching it over and over again from the outside. That isn't healing, that's self-hypnosis. You don't need more closure, you need less attention on the ghost. Obsession isn't love, it's the ego trying to find identity through pain, because if you're still hurting, then it must have mattered. If you still miss them, then it must have been deep. If you can't stop looking, then maybe you were the real one, right? No. Pain does not equal truth, and obsession is not meaning, it's repetition. So here's the Stoic reversal. What if you treated attention like currency? What if every second you gave to them cost you peace? Would you still pay that price? Because attention is the most valuable thing you own. It's what advertisers fight for, what social media is engineered to steal, what toxic people use to control. The Stoics knew this. That's why Marcus said, "You become what you give your attention to." Not what you feel, not what you say, what you focus on. You want your power back. Here's how you start. A 48-hour dopamine fast. Not from food, not from your phone entirely, just from them. 48 hours. No searching their name, no checking their last post, no replaying conversations in your head, no mentally arguing with their ghost, no writing texts you'll never send. For 48 hours, starve the obsession. And every time their name pops up in your mind, replace it with a task. Journal, clean, walk, read, breathe, move. This is not distraction. This is reclamation of your energy, of your life, of you. Obsession dies when you stop feeding it. And what felt like addiction becomes silence. Not because the feeling is gone, but because the focus is shifted. The Stoics didn't fight emotions, they redirected attention away from noise, toward clarity, toward purpose. That's how you win. There's no magic switch, but there is discipline, and it starts with one decision: to no longer offer your worship to something that can't love you back. Reclaim your attention, reclaim your worship, because the altar of your mind deserves better gods. Rule 4. Stop chasing closure. It's a mirage. You're waiting for something, not the text, not the apology, not even the truth. You're waiting for closure, but it won't come. And even if it does, it won't look like what you're imagining. It won't fix the ache. It won't answer the question. Because closure is not something they give you. It's something you stop needing. You keep thinking, if I just understood what went wrong, if I could make sense of it, then I could move on. That's the lie. The ego wants a clean narrative, a story where you weren't a fool, where it ended with dignity, where their silence didn't mean you were forgettable. But the Stoics knew. The world doesn't owe you closure. It only offers you clarity, if you're brave enough to see it. You don't need to know why they left. You don't need to know if they loved you back. You don't need to know if it ever meant anything. That's not healing. That's bargaining. Bargaining with the past. a past that's deaf to your questions. Closure is the mirage in the desert. It shimmers, it draws you forward. You chase it, you bleed for it. But when you get there, there's nothing, just more sand, more longing, more questions with no mouths to answer them. So here's what you do. You write the questions you'll never ask. You write them with your whole chest, with rage, with heartbreak, with the pieces of you they left scattered, and then you do the hardest part. You never ask them. Because the answers would never be enough, even if they were honest, even if they were kind. The real wound isn't what they did. It's that you hoped they were someone who wouldn't. And no explanation can fix that fracture, that break between the version of them in your mind and who they truly were. You want to heal? Then stop chasing the ghost for proof. Stop checking your inbox like there's a verdict waiting. Stop thinking healing means solving something. It doesn't. Healing means surrender. And that's what makes it hard. The Stoics didn't beg for closure. They stood inside the silence and listened to it. They learned how to live without the answer. That's clarity. Closure is about acceptance without condition, without apology, without fairness, without justice. You walk away not because it's resolved, but because you are. Not everything ends with a ribbon. Some things just stop. And the wisdom is in letting them. What if the story doesn't need an ending? What if the real piece is in no longer needing to explain it? That's what the Stoics believed, that the more you chase meaning in the ashes, the more you miss the sunrise. Stop chasing closure. It's a mirage, and your soul deserves water, not smoke. Rule 5. Let the dead bury the dead. It's over. But your mind won't admit it. Your body still expects their touch. Your heart still makes space for their return. You're not healing. You're haunting yourself. You grieve. But what exactly are you mourning? Not them, not who they were. You're mourning the version of them you built in your head, the one that would have stayed, the one that never lied, the one that only existed in your hope. The Stoics didn't only speak of death as the end of breath. They spoke of all finalities. When a friendship breaks, when a future dissolves, when a love becomes memory. Seneca wrote, "The wise man knows when something has ended." But we don't end things anymore. We stall them. We drag their corpse behind us and call it loyalty. You don't want to let go, because letting go makes it real. Because what if they come back? What if they were your person? But here's the bitter truth. If they were your person, they'd still be here. And if they come back, they won't be the version you remember, because you've changed. This isn't love, this is grief. Love nourishes. Grief replays. You are grieving, but you haven't buried anything. You've just kept the casket open, hoping the past would wake up and say, "I made a mistake." They won't, and even if they did, what kind of love do you have to resurrect? So you do what the Stoics would have done. You hold a funeral. For the texts, the voice notes, the what-ifs, the person you once were when you loved them, you write an obituary. This love once burned, fierce, pure, but it outlived its oxygen. It couldn't breathe in the silence. It died trying to survive something it couldn't name. And now I release it, not with hate, but with truth. Then you press delete, one photo at a time, not in anger, in acknowledgement. This is the burial, not of love, but of its illusion. Don't bury it in your mind. That's not closure. That's repression. Bury it in reality. The Stoics didn't cling to ruins. They walked forward, knowing what's gone can't be held, only honored. Maybe you feel guilt for moving on. That's normal. Maybe you feel like you're erasing something that mattered. But death doesn't make something meaningless. It just makes it complete. When you carry ghosts, you disappear with them. But when you release them, you come back to your breath, to your peace, to yourself. Let the dead bury the dead, because you still have a life to live. Rule 6. Your soul is not a rental. How many nights have you let them live inside you, not physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? They stopped speaking to you, but they never stopped echoing. Their silence speaks louder than their words ever did, and somehow you still keep the door open, hoping the sound of keys will return. They don't even think about you, but you gave them the lease to your heart. You didn't just love them. You relocated yourself into them. And now, you don't know where you live anymore. Musonius Rufus once said, "He who allows others to live in his soul has given away his throne." Your throne, your peace, your mind, all occupied by someone who no longer pays rent in time, in effort, in care. You didn't just lose them, you lost your seat at the head of your own kingdom. This is trauma bonding. It's not just heartbreak, it's a chemical trap. You built routines around them. Their presence was your anchor, and when they left, the body panicked. Because addiction doesn't need logic, only repetition. They weren't medicine, they were morphine. Painkiller, not healer. You keep telling yourself, "I just miss them." But that's not the truth, is it? What you really mean is, "I don't know who I am without them." The Stoics didn't avoid emotion, they examined it. They knew attachment without awareness becomes enslavement. And when you enslave yourself, even to love, you lose freedom. Freedom of thought, freedom of presence, freedom to be. Epictetus called it the inner citadel, a mind so trained, so grounded, that no visitor, no memory, no craving could linger without permission, not cold, not numb, but untouchable. And isn't that what you long for? Not to forget them, but to remember you. You don't need revenge, you don't need closure, you don't need them to apologize, you need your throne back. So start small, one thought at a time, call yourself home. When the mind says, "I miss them," you say, "No, I miss myself." And you rebuild, not from reaction, but from recollection. Your soul is not a hotel, not a halfway house for people passing through. It is your fortress. Guard it, reclaim it, live in it again, because you were never theirs to abandon. You were simply waiting to return to yourself. Rule 7. Create the future they no longer belong to. The past is a graveyard, and you've already mourned long enough. So what now? You could wait for a text, a tap, a second chance, but you'd be waiting for someone who doesn't exist anymore, not in their eyes, not in yours. The Stoics had a word for this, prohairesis. Your power to choose, your power to direct what happens next. They didn't just accept fate. They authored it. Pain is not a sentence, it's a spark, and you can let it consume you, or you can let it forge you. Marcus Aurelius said, "Make yourself worthy of the fire that remade you." Not bitter, not angry, worthy. This is the part they never see, the silence, the rebuilding, the thousand small choices that say, "I'm not going back." You aren't moving on to prove anything. You're moving on because you outgrew the version of you that begged to stay. That person, the one who waited by the phone, replayed the memories, clung to meaning. They died in the fire. They loved a version of you that no longer exists, and that's your victory, because love without growth is possession, and they never saw what you could become without them. But you do. In 6 months, I wake up early. I make my bed. I move my body. I read what feeds me. I speak only when necessary. I no longer reach for what doesn't reach back. In 6 months, I look in the mirror and see someone I chose to become. Not someone who was shaped by loss, but sculpted by fire. In 6 months, They don't exist in this story anymore, not out of hate, but because I built a life so whole they wouldn't recognize it, or me. Don't move on, move forward, into something so real, so full, so new, that they wouldn't survive 5 minutes in it. You don't need revenge, you don't need validation, you need evolution. Create a future they no longer belong to. Not to spite them, but to honor you. You felt it. That tightness in the chest when their name lights up, that phantom ache when it doesn't. You've stared at the ceiling, scrolled their feed, rewritten the last thing you said, looking for closure. But let me tell you something. Closure is a lie. You don't get it from them. You give it to yourself. Now a recap of what we have learned. Rule 1. Cut the thread, not the heart. You don't let go because you stopped loving them. You let go because you started loving you, like a kite escaping a burning house, not to destroy it, but to survive. Rule 2. The self is a fortress, not a mirror. You are not what they reflected. You are what remains when the mirror breaks, and when you build from within, no one can take it from you again. Rule 3. Attention is worship. Reclaim yours. You fed the ghost with your focus. You watered weeds with your mind. But now you fast from them. You pray at a new altar, your own peace. Rule 4. Stop chasing closure. It's a mirage. You won't get the answer, and if you did, it wouldn't heal you, because the wound isn't about them. It's about your willingness to leave it open. Rule 5. Let the dead bury the dead. You grieved the version of them that existed only in your head. But now you bury the illusion, not in memory, in reality. Rule 6. Your soul is not a rental. No more squatters in your psyche. No more tenants in your temple. The throne is yours, and yours alone. Guard it like your life depends on it, because it does. Rule 7. Create the future they no longer belong to. There is a you that they will never meet, one who rises early, one who doesn't flinch at silence, one who builds a life so full they disappear from the pages. You do not need them to come back. You only need to come back to yourself. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them. Epictetus. Comment which rule cut the deepest. Subscribe if you're done begging for closure. This isn't detachment. It's freedom.